I'm Valerie, and you're listening to the Hey Love podcast. We know just what it's like to have a queer and woman-owned small business team. After all, we're Hey Love Studio.
Here, we'll be sharing our tips and tricks of what we have learned over a few years running a small business.
Whether it's a marketing strategy or how to get new clients or how to even just treat the clients you already have better, we're going to let you in on all the little secrets that make our team successful.
So join us along while we untap topics to make sure you shine and hype your clients up and pay those bills.
All right. It's that time of your life where you are planning your wedding timeline. Yay! Now, if you're me, you absolutely love that. But if you are most humans, you might be feeling a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
So let's break it down a little bit. What are some of the common fears?
So here's the thing. What am I missing? Am I going to miss anything? Who am I missing on this timeline? What if it feels rushed? What if we don't have something planned that we didn't plan for? What if something goes wrong? It rains, it snows, wind. What do we do? And this is where a timeline honestly comes in handy.
Yeah, and it's something funny that I always say to our couples, but for most of our couples, you're probably eloping once in your life. So you maybe don't know what a lot of timelines look like, right? You haven't done this before, and maybe you're never going to do it again. So this is really where having wedding experts comes into play. We are the ones who have been to countless weddings and elopements. We know what a typical timeline looks like. We know what something unique and creative looks like, and we know how to make it fit. So a lot of time with elopements, we think that just because there are less people, there's going to be a shorter timeline, but that's not always the case. So today we're going to be talking about how to plan an elopement timeline that works for you, that doesn't feel rushed, doesn't feel like you're squeezing things in. It feels like you have enough space. So today we're going to be talking about how to plan an elopement timeline that, first of all, makes sure that everything you want is included, that you're not feeling rushed or like things are squeezed in, that you're getting to enjoy the space of your day, right?
Yeah.
And all those little pockets of moments, and basically just how to make sure that it all flows smoothly.
Yeah. To be honest, you're eloping not because you wanted all that pressure from a wedding. So let's make sure what you plan feels good and feels like an elopement.
First things first, elopement timelines are about vibes, not schedules. Typically, the only real scheduled thing for an elopement is what time the ceremony happens. And even that oftentimes has a lot of flexibility. The only case where there's less flexibility is when we're talking about a courtroom elopement, right? Where you actually have a scheduled time to start. Other than that, we're not really looking at planning things like guest arrivals. Typically, we're not looking at a rigid ceremony start time. There's also no pressure to entertain people around you, whether that's your elderly grandmother who needs a chair to sit in or the young children who are bored out of their minds watching two people kiss. They're not into this. So instead, the goals of an elopement timelines are really two things, which are
emotion above anything else, and also its presence over the productivity of the day.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll hear us kind of talk about avoiding making weddings and elopements productions. We personally don't believe that the day you're marrying your best friend and the love of your life is a day to focus on taking great photos and great videos. That's going to happen naturally as long as you're in love. So instead, what we're trying to do is how can we really slow down the day so it feels like a beautiful long date with your best friend and not a sprint to the finish line of getting married and saying I do.
And honestly, also not like a movie production set where you need to fake your excitement and intimacy with one another. We want you to feel as true as moment you are. And sometimes if you need guidance in that moment, we're there. But essentially, an elopement timeline is generally there just to create that space of sacredness and intimacy for you.
Before we even talk timelines, let's talk about the three things that actually impact them when it comes to an elopement.
So cool. It's going to be location. Where are we going? Is this a courtyard? Is it a mountain adventure elopement? You know, are we going to a national park where we need permits and stuff like that? Or is it essentially like backyard, you know? Location matters. Then also, as creatives, is lighting. When do you want to do this? And honestly, it's also like, how do you want your day to start? Do you want to wake up early in the morning and have it throughout the day, or do you want to have a slower start and end the night, you know, or do you want to just have it all? I personally love a good 3-day elopement. That's my vibes. But, you know, lighting and stuff like that really hits differently, whether you want a sunset ceremony or a sunrise ceremony.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the beautiful thing about an elopement is that you do what makes most sense for you and your partner. You don't need permission to do anything. If you want to get your hair and makeup done and you want to start your elopement at noon so you can have a lunch, do it. Versus if you don't want to do those things because you want to elope at 8 a.m. as the sun rises, let's do it. All of those things really don't have to dictate your timeline because you are the timeline.
And then the last thing is energy. Again, is this wanting to be a fast-paced situation? Do you want to go early in the morning, late at night? But essentially, time, so when, where, and then
who are we?
Who are we? Essentially, is the big questions.
So now let's talk through some of those key moments of a day that you may want to consider adding into your timeline. Again, whether or not you actually put the timestamp of what time this is happening, it's good to think about how long these things take.
And to be honest, this is something that we tell our couples to think about because a lot of time you don't really necessarily think about it. But as someone who's behind the camera, these moments we're about to tell you, they're very intimate and extremely special. And I kind of push people to include these moments because of the energy surrounded by them.
So when you think about why you actually create a timeline for any kind of an event is usually to communicate to your vendors. Now, for an elopement, your vendors are going to be a pretty short list. Typically, it's going to be your videographer and photographer, assuming you have both or one or the other, an officiant, which, by the way, we're also ordained. So a lot of times we become that. And then also anybody who's helping you get ready beforehand. So as long as you're able to communicate a start time to any of those people, that's really what's going to impact your timeline. So a lot of times with us, couples ask for support with their timeline because they want to know how long to book us, their photographers. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk through kind of some of those things you might want to consider in your timeline, why you may want to consider having a photographer or videographer there for that moment or why not, and also how long that might take. So let's start with getting ready. Getting ready is the beginning part of your wedding day, and it can be super short or it can be super long. Some things that make it more short would be typically doing your own hair and makeup. This is basically the wedding makeup I had, which is a little bit of eye gel and a little bit of lippy.
I just want to say there are people who do their own makeup and it's banger and it doesn't take them that fast.
That's true. If you do your own makeup and it takes you an hour, you know who you are, and that's great. Factor that into your timeline.
Girl, and you, queen, you are also a pro at that. So you don't qualify as a lippy.
Yes. Different ends of the spectrum. Getting ready takes as long or as short as you want it to, right? And so for some people, that's going to be really fast. For other people, that's going to be much longer. Here are the things that sometimes happen at a getting ready moment where you'd want a photographer. And it really comes down to those slow moments that happen when you're getting ready. A wedding day getting ready timeline typically involves a lot of people doing hair and makeup for the brides or the female presenting people in the party, and a lot of drinking and messing around for the people not getting their hair and makeup done. Historically, that's what getting ready has meant in the wedding industry. And so initially, Adeline and I were like, well, why do we need to photograph that? Like, yeah, sure, maybe you want one photo of somebody putting lipstick on one of the partners, but like, honestly, is that the photo that people are going to remember? So for wedding days, we kind of were like, ugh, why do we want to get there early? But then what we found was that for elopements, those getting ready moments actually tend to look a lot different. For example, getting ready for an elopement might look like writing your vows. It might look like dancing with your partner in the window. Shout out to two of our best friends who eloped. And we were able to capture that moment before they got on their dresses because we were there for their getting ready.
So we also have a few like couples in the wedding timeline spectrum that don't want to do a lot of posing photos. They don't want a lot of like production level stuff, which is obviously who we are as humans and creatives. But one of them, I was like, I know you're getting ready. It's just 5 minutes. I understand that. Is it okay if I invite myself to that space? And they were like, yeah, of course. It's going to be quick though. So good luck with getting photos and video.
Yeah, it's like an eye gel, maybe a chapstick moment. We love that.
Well,
right?
also they were getting ready at a different location, getting the final details done. Because they were not massive on pose photos and stuff, they were like, this picture of getting ready photos, we're not buying.
Doesn't speak to them, yeah.
Just invite me along there and I'm just going to be there. Celebrating, laughing with y'all, whatever happens. Didn't tell them where to stand, didn't say anything. It was just an intimate moment and I was able to capture it right there and then. And again, if I wasn't there, we couldn't have that on photo and stuff. So I think that intimacy and weddings, yes, looks different than elopement. It could be an early morning coffee. I love a good pajama moment. You just sitting there and honestly telling us why you love each other again. This day is about you reiterating your love for one another. Tell us again why you love each other, you know?
Yeah. So when it comes to planning a timeline and your elopement and thinking about getting ready time, yes, it can be on the 15-minute mark. It can be on the 2 hours mark. What you want to consider are those intimate moments that are going to happen during your getting ready time. Again, typically you may not need us there while you're putting on your makeup or doing your hair, but if you're doing your hair together, that could be a really special moment. If you're writing your vows or finalizing them, that could be a really special moment. If having a coffee every day with your partner is something you plan to do on your wedding day, invite us. That's going to be a really special moment.
Honestly, a dream thing for me is to have a full day elopement, and we start the day early morning and we start off with the couple making breakfast together, having a coffee together, and generally having a conversation, and then slowly moving into the day of their ceremony. That's my dream.
That's what you want. Please hire us, because Addie is obsessed with that concept.
So slow mornings, I love that. We're team getting ready, right? Yeah. Because intimacy is not from the ceremony part. It starts way before then, right? How do you feel about, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot for our couples and stuff, and I would love to hear what you think. First look versus first touch, or eloping, obviously. How would you reimagine it into like people's like timeline, and what would you suggest people do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it really comes down to how they're getting ready. So a lot of times our couples, I mean, to be honest, the tradition of like not seeing your partner on the day of your marriage, I feel like has kind of left the room. It's not really common anymore, especially with a lot of our queer couples.
I kind of feel like this year it is.
Like people are doing that more, like not seeing each other.
That's true. You're okay. Maybe 50-50 case.
In the past, nobody saw their partner
Yes.
on the day of their wedding. And now I think like it's not really always that big of a deal. So I think as a result, that kind of changes the whole first look, first touch moment, right? We see a lot of times with our couples is the first look honestly has become less about the couple seeing each other and more about the couple revealing themselves to friends and family. And that's been really fun. At an elopement, you may or may not have that, because it depends on whether you're doing more of a micro wedding where family and friends are invited, or if it is a true elopement of just the two of you. In those cases, I feel like first looks may not always be as impactful unless you got ready separately, or if you've kept your outfit separate. That's the other thing. Let's be honest, a lot of our couples live together. It's kind of hard to hide a wedding outfit.
Very impressed if you can, because I can't keep a secret. And I know my suit that I want one day, I would be way too excited to show you the progress of my suit coming alive than like keeping it secret. But I do feel like a first look on an elopement can also create that first step of intimacy between each other. But again, it's going to be some planning, and also like you need to communicate with your partner whether we're ready to keep everything a secret.
So in our cases, we've done a lot of situations where maybe the couple got ready together, but they didn't get dressed together. They got dressed separately, and that allowed for a first one. We've also had tons of couples, both straight and queer, who do first touch while reading vows. We love that. And half the time, we're not even allowed to hear the vows. A lot of times our couples have chosen like private vows means no video recording. And while we will often be allowed to take photos, we have to take it from like 20 feet back with a zoom lens. So we're not even getting to hear it. It's been super beautiful. And what's nice about first touch is that that's also a lot easier to coordinate. So when you think about first look, if you want photo and video and stuff, anyways, regardless of whether you're doing photo and video, just the fact that you're having two people meet each other without seeing each other, it can be a little bit hard. You usually have to have people like guiding you to that.
But if we split up, you know, that's easy to do.
Totally. But with first touch, it's really nice because really you just need any corner or a tree. And you just tell people, well, don't turn to your left. That's your partner. So I really love first touch. I think that usually a first touch might take about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how long the vows are. Whereas a first look, I feel like, is a little bit faster sometimes once it happens. The first look, once it happens, is it's like that.
I would say first look is also a great way of first look and then read your vows together. But again, it's your elopement, so it doesn't really matter. We can hike a mountain and then read your vows. I love with elopements how intimate those moments are because there's no audience, right? There's no people waiting for us. You can take it as slow or as fast as you want. And then I was wondering, what do you think for like for me, after like a first look, people sort of like are now what to do. Do we now just start reading out vows? Do we go hike? Like, if you think about a person who's from scratch,
Has never eloped.
now we see each other, cool, you know. I think for me, after that is a choice of whether you want to do a fun activity together. Do you want to read your vows, have your officiant go into more of an intimate moment where you actually exchange rings, or have any ceremonial like things that you want to do? I dream one day I would love to be invited onto adventure elopement where we hike a few like mountains or like trails. First look or first touch, hike, and then on top of a hike, the mountain, you say your vows. Is there anything you think couples should think about like in between those moments, or do you think like they can do whatever they want? Maybe just guidance.
Yeah, I think what you brought up was a very common feeling of like, what's next? And I feel like that, frankly, is why people have timelines anyways, because for a lot of us, it's hard to slow down. I know for myself, like I'm very like goal orientated, and not having something next on the to-do list can be hard. So yeah. So I think to your point, on an elopement day, after you've gotten ready, after you've maybe done your first touch, that's oftentimes where we see people start to go into their ceremony. So to your point, either that's, we're going to do our adventure elopement, we're going to hike, maybe we're going to go into our ceremony. Sometimes it is just sitting around. I think about our couple, Madison and Sophia, who got married. Well, they were waiting around for their court appointment. So in those cases, we usually like to just kind of talk and check in. How are we feeling?
Can't go anywhere. So for courthouse elopements, if you do plan to have one, especially at Fort Worth Courthouse, you have to be close to the door when you check in, because they can call you whenever the judge is basically ready. And my professional opinion is, I'm not going to take you away, because we want to make sure that you at least go into the courthouse. And that's usually also where we talk about prepping inside, but yeah.
Yeah, we might like talk our couple through like what it's going to look like once the door is open. Like, where are you going to stand? What are we going to be doing? Because we want people to not be stressed out when they experience that, and like have that anxiety of like, but what's going on?
You know what? Also, like, with Madison and Sophia, what happened is we gave them a moment to just be alone, and we stood far away. We captured what we saw from far, but they had that intimate moment for themselves. And I think for your elopement, invite that space to include your photographer and videographer and any other vendors, but also create pockets where you can be from afar together. Even on weddings, I say this, is that you need to create moments of intimacy where it's just them two. I was wondering, are you team sunset or team sunrise photos?
Can I say I'm team neither? Hot take. Here's the thing. Sunsets are beautiful to look at. Don't get me wrong. I love looking at a sunset. There have been I can tell you many times where you and I have sat together, enjoying a drink, watching the sunset, and I've cried. I cry when it's a beautiful sunset. The problem is for photography in elopements is that if it is just the couple, you're gazing into each other's eyes, so it's not a big deal. But we have had a few elopements where the guests are actually staring into the sun. Yes, they're looking at the couple, but unless the sun is perfectly positioned behind the couple's head or bodies, they're looking at it. So to be honest, I'm not really a huge fan of sunrise or sunset. Instead, I would like to maybe do the ceremony a few hours in between either of those. Probably not noon. You start to talk about things like direct sun. That's not nice. But anyways, I would like to find a shaded spot, midday, have a ceremony. Sure, take photos at sunset, but I would avoid in your timeline any moments where your guest or you would have to stare into the sun.
Yeah, that's not comfortable. And I also think like this just popped in my mind because as we're talking, ceremony happens. We kiss. Say I do. We have our little hand fasting, we exchange rings, whatever is sapphic and queer for you, go queens. Would you say we should go directly into newlywed photos, or would you like maybe tell people like, hey, take a moment for yourself? Because I know traditionally at a wedding, it would be ceremony, family portraits, newlyweds, and then we go into reception. We're not recreating that energy. Do you think we should like have a 30-minute buffer
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I would say, yeah, you should have as much buffer as you can. So again, with kind of this concept of a timeline, like Addie just said, with a wedding, it's going to be a lot more rigid, but with an elopement, you have a lot more space.
Yeah.
So just because you finish your ceremony at 2 p.m. where nobody's staring into the sun, doesn't mean you can't take your newlywed photos at sunset when you're ready.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can take your bridal portraits, your solo portraits just of you whenever. I mean, that's the great thing about it, especially with an elopement, because usually the portraits of you with friends and family are going to be pretty minimal. So whereas a wedding, it might be an hour and a half affair, you know, you've got great aunts and uncles and everybody on every side of the family. A lot of times elopements can do those much better.
I think a 5-minute buffer between saying I do, a kiss, and then take a 5 minutes, take in the views, be with your partner, even as a champagne toast, because we can always like record those, but we don't have to immediately go into like, we have to now take photos.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing also that like you and I like is it doesn't have to be alcohol. In fact, on our champagne toast of our wedding, it was non-alcoholic bubbly because we didn't want alcohol in a public space or it wasn't allowed. But yeah, having moments to literally just celebrate what just happened is beautiful. Immediately following a ceremony, if it's my suggestion for an elopement is, pop something bubbly, a kombucha, a Sprite, a champagne, have a sip, tell each other again how much you love them and why you're so happy to be married. Sign your license.
Yes, signing your license has become something so, like, not really done anymore.
Yeah.
But I think in elopements, it is something you do. Shout out Colorado that made it legal that your dog or cat can sign it. I think that's bloody brilliant, and every state should do that. But
yeah, sign your license, pop some bubbly before you rush into the portraits. And what's really nice, like for us, is that typically our couples don't necessarily want the stand still and look pretty portraits. Instead, they want portraits of them walking and holding hands, which is something they're naturally going to be doing wherever they are.
I mean, if you think about a mountain elopement, that's going to happen
throughout the day.
If you decide to get dressed on top of the mountain because you might be sweaty, like then it's different portraits as you go. Any case, so that literally you can do anything, but we highly recommend building in like a 5 to 10 minutes after your ceremony to just little celebration without like really going into actual portraits or filmmaking, anything, you know. And then I also think it's important to talk about your celebration after everything. Like, do you want brainwave? Okay, we say I do. We stare in the sunset. Love sunset photos. Absolutely love it, right? What if we skip newlywed photos and we have a private dinner with a chef? And that becomes our session, basically, as we enjoy food. How would you, like, if we were getting married, how would you celebrate the afterwards?
Yeah, I think exactly like that. So I would also say for us, like, we like to include movement and action a lot in our photos. So I probably would avoid a private chef dinner where it's just plated in front of you. Instead, I'd like it to be semi-interactive. So like a hibachi moment, right? Where they're like flinging the shrimps at you or like squeezing the sake in your mouth. Yeah. Or like my brother and sister-in-law who got married and then went out for pizza, right? Like maybe they could cut the pizza together or, you know, do little things like that. I think that would be a really fun way to capture those moments. I mean, you know this, I'm big team slicing cake. Again, this is something that I think kind of went out of fashion and like for valid reasons.
We're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back, baby.
We're bringing it back.
Addie, can you tell everybody, because I've told Addie a million times now, why is cutting the cake so important?
And you need to correct me if I'm wrong, but cutting the cake is more than just sharing your dessert with yourself and your loved ones. It's actually the first act as a married couple that you do together, and it's done with something sweet, so the sweetness of your love, and then it's then usually shared with each other.
Exactly.
Right?
So like just think, as a couple, you're gonna probably do a lot of things together, whether that's paying bills, which is not so fun, or traveling, which is super fun, or cooking dinner on a Thursday when you're both hangry, not so fun. And so yeah, cutting the cake is meant to be a fun thing for you to do together, and then bonus sharing the sweetness of the cake.
Honestly, like having a little cupcake on top of the mountain or a donut that you packed and you just break it together. Even that is representing that, and I love that.
Like you said, a picnic, right? So we actually did a really fun photo shoot where we got to be photographed. Shout out to Bree of the Bren Collective. And so Bree organized this whole picnic for us along with a picnic company. And every moment, remember, was a different activity for us.
Yeah.
So we had an activity where like it was winter themed. So we made hot chocolate and like even that was fun, like putting on the whipped cream and eating it. And then we had a cookie decorating moment. We even had like painting. I mean, we had like literally like 10 activities to do. It was amazing. And each one resulted in a unique photo.
Also, like, just being us, you know, and that's the most important part of making your elopement you.
Doing those little activities, those little moments after the ceremony that still feel like you.
Yeah. To be honest, so, like, I just want to say we eloped, right? Like we established. If you don't know this by now, you need to rewatch.
Listen to all of our podcasts.
I also love that we had just a simple dinner at a restaurant. And the reason why we also chose that is because our venue space, our Airbnb, didn't allow us to invite a small group of like family, just Valerie's siblings, over.
Well, they allowed us to invite the family, but they did not want us to invite the private chef. We didn't want my mom to cook dinner. So we're like, oh, let's invite a chef. And then our Airbnb was like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah. And instead we chose to go to a restaurant. And the best part of this, we can go back to this restaurant whenever we want to and have our elopement like meal. Like it's
very
so
special.
It's extremely special.
And shout out to our photographer who recommended it because we were really struggling to find a restaurant that kind of ticked our boxes. And our photographer was like, well, I love this pizza place in my neighborhood, which like also she lives in San Francisco Bay Area. So like, yeah, literally a pizza place in your neighborhood is really nice.
Yeah.
So we went and had pizza. And now every time we go to visit my brother in the Bay Area, we always get that dessert and it's unreal.
If we ever speak about our wedding dessert. Anyways, so I also want to just tell y'all a little bit about, because you're listening to this because you're planning your timeline, the common mistakes that we kind of see and what we see people do or stress about maybe is not worthy of stress or things that you should be thinking about. And something that comes in mind is not having enough time on your timeline.
I would say, with your photographer and your videographer.
Yeah, because if you want it to feel slow, you need to choose to make it slow. You know, an hour elopement is not necessarily, it's a ceremony. There's really not. It might sound so long, but it's not that long. An hour is just enough for you to get ready in place.
Do your ceremony and then take a few photos. An hour elopement is something that we really don't recommend unless you're just not interested in having a photographer, which is fine. Maybe you're just like not somebody who wants to have those moments captured. Perfect. An hour is good for you. Or you're under a pretty extreme budget, which let's be honest, sometimes that's all we got the money for is an hour for photography.
I would say we have a minimum of 2 and honestly, that's too short. Please leave room in buffer. Like a 4-hour elopement sort of starts at the sweet spot because there's time for you to be intimate with your couple. There's time for you to just be yourself, take it slow, have these fun moments in between and make it really meaningful rather than just saying, I do sign a contract and now we're married, I guess.
And I think you kind of bring up another point, which is that a lot of times we have this thought that every moment the photographer is booked, the photographer should be taking a photo. But again, we've really realized that when you do that, it actually can create a lot of stress for our clients because they do constantly feel like they're being photographed and they can't just breathe.
And to be honest, it's put stress on me because now I know that there's an expectation that I have to be shooting 24/7. And in reality, not every minute is going to be like
photography worthy, right? There's going to be moments where you just want to breathe, where you need to do something that's like not super intentional. And so therefore we might just want to let you be. When you have a slower wedding, an elopement that's 4, 5, 6 hours, you're actually inviting the photographer to take that slowness with you. And rather than really hoping and forcing and making these micro intimate moments happen, you're allowing it to happen naturally. And I think that's a big difference. I think when we think about an hour-long timeline, unfortunately, it is going to come with a very quick series of prompts, right? Yeah. Let's take a few minutes to photograph you each separately. Let's take a few minutes now to photograph your ceremony. Let's take a few minutes now to photograph you post-ceremony newlywed photos. And that's it. Goodbye. It's going to have to be. It's going to be smaller, but it's going to be a traditional wedding timeline, right? It's going to be back to back, No breathing, no pausing, get the photos and be done.
Back to back and breathing. Imagine doing too much on your elopement. Queens, we do not have to do everything. And this is why I love like I say, I love multiple daily elopements too, because if you want to do so much, do it over multiple times of days, But I think also making sure that you include what you want to do in your day in a minimalistic way where there's room for intimacy and stuff. Start with coffee. Don't do it a coffee and a brunch at a different cafe. And after the cafe, we're quickly going to the vintage store. And then after that, we're going to go to your favorite bookstore because that's where we met. And then we're going to hike a mountain, do our vow.
It doesn't need to be a scavenger hunt. Your elopement does not need to be a scavenger hunt.
And because of you saying scavenger hunt, please remember to eat. I think that's something that people don't remember. And this happens at weddings too. Drink your water, eat something. Just think about
your. If you have a coffee every day, please have a coffee on your wedding day so you don't get a caffeine headache.
Yes. And if you're planning to do a 6-hour elopement with us, put in a snack time in there.
Yeah, we'll work that in.
Like Madison and Sophia, I know they're coming up a lot, but we did 4 hours with them and they were we all said we wish we had more time. And honestly, there's so much I wanted to do more, but they were hitting the wall. They needed a water champagne break. They needed to go eat something.
And that's what we did.
4 hours. Yeah.
We went to the nearby bar that they were staying at the hotel, and we popped a bottle of champagne and got a last few photos, and then we called it a day. I think, with your timeline. So again, to kind of circle back, the reason you have a timeline is to communicate to your vendors when and where certain moments are happening. When it's a wedding, there's a lot more vendors, a lot more people, a lot more rigidity in the timeline. But when it's an elopement, there should be a lot fewer people, a lot fewer vendors, and a lot more expression for relaxation. So schedule the relaxation. Don't say, well, because there's less involved, I can make it all happen in an hour. You can, anybody can, but you don't have to, and you shouldn't if you don't have to. So take it slow, take it easy, and enjoy those little moments with your loved ones.
I think that's great to wrap up this podcast because... that's essentially what it is. Just remember that you want to feel calm and connected in your day and always just put yourself first as a couple and plan it as you are. I want to invite you to follow us on Hey Love Studios on Instagram. That's where I am chaotic. We share some BTS, our beautiful photos and films over there. Come say hello to us. We'll have some clips from this podcast over there too. And until next time, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And hopefully you've learned something.
Yeah, if something really stuck with you today, please consider sharing it with another photographer, videographer, creative. Make sure you hit follow and consider leaving us a review.
And if you love this chaos, please ensure that you follow us on Instagram at Hey Love Studio. This is where we share our BTS, our beautiful queer love, and other couples, and we would love to see you there.
Until next time, keep creating,
keep celebrating,
and know that, hey love, we got you.